Sports.
Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports, taking up to 2 p.m. as we discussed why I don't care about the Kings coming back from down 23. And it's not that I don't care, but it's more of I don't really know what we're supposed to do with this. Because everybody can say, well, they came back from this. If they didn't dig a hole, they wouldn't have been as top. Whatever it is. At the end of the day, you could make the argument that the Nuggets didn't execute during that time frame to give up the 23-point lead. So both teams had stints where they did not execute. They simply did not execute, right? The Kings didn't execute early. The Nuggets didn't execute about the middle of the game and to start the fourth quarter. So neither team executed throughout the duration of the game, so they both had an opportunity to win it late. And when it was money time, the Nuggets were able to wipe away the fact that they just gave up a 23-point lead, focus up, and win the basketball game. Because the Nuggets had the worst, they basically, their plus minus, whatever it is, 33 points. They went from being up 23 to being down 10. And they were able to overcome that and win the game. The Kings came back from 23 to go up 10. You take all the momentum, you're at home, and then you blow it. So I don't want to hear it about the Kings having to come back from down 23 because they had all the momentum in the world. They had all the motivation in the world. They need these games, and they couldn't get it done. It's just about execution. A lot of people keep saying don't get hung up on the last play. It is what it is. The Kings never should have been in that situation. And can we live in a world where two things can be true? Right? DeMar DeRozan fumbled the bag on that last possession. I actually paused that freeze thing. I paused that. If you look, are we sure Jokic doesn't at least get there for a hack foul? Are we positive?
You're not wrong.
Are we positive? I mean, obviously you assume DeMar would make at least, one of them, so it would be tie ball game.
I mean, the Kings were shooting 19 of 20 from the foul line. I think he hits both.
Probably. But you watch it again and you pause it right when DeMar gets the ball. It's possible Jokic gets there in time to at least hack him. But regardless of that, you have that play that is what it is. You had an opportunity. You didn't get it done. And we can live in a world where that matters, but also the fact that they never should have been down 23 to begin with, that also matters. Should there have been a change made? And I think Jay Crowder, and I'm trying to remember if Jay Crowder, I believe, came in for Dougie McBuckets. And did they try to put Jay Crowder on Aaron Gordon at one point? I feel like that they switch everything, so it's hard to keep up. But Aaron Gordon was just owning the Kings. DeMar DeRozan, this is what happens this is why we talk about the difference between threes and fours. And why I don't know that DeMar should be guarding fours. It's definitely not Aaron Gordon type of four.
I think in the fourth quarter, it was briefly Isaac Jones who came into the game because Crowder didn't play at all in the fourth quarter, but Isaac played about a minute and a half. Len came in for 2:14, but I think he was just alternating with the Sabonis minutes.
Yeah.
But no Jay Crowder in the fourth quarter. I didn't realize Keon played 10 minutes in the fourth quarter.
So this is interesting. This is from Derek 2 Shifty on the Sac Chat. And he says, I'm tired of the DeMar DeRozan slander / hate. He punched it in the play before. That was major. He made a mistake. Every, in all caps, player on the Kings makes mistakes. Is there something, can we get a list going of untouchable or players that you're just not allowed to talk about? Because every time I talk about DeMar DeRozan, there's a caller, there's a texter. It's to the point where we're on the other side of this. You guys, and I don't know if it's because, wow, DeMar DeRozan chose Sacramento. Give it a rest. When we talk about De'Aaron Fox not playing well, nobody says, hey, don't talk about De'Aaron like that. And he's homegrown. When we talk about Domantas Sabonis and what he needs to do in the playoffs, don't talk about Domantas Sabonis. Why are there certain players that get coddled and certain players that don't? DeMar DeRozan will tell you he bleeped up himself. He will tell you that. When Malik Monk goes on a turnover frenzy, nobody says, hey, don't talk about Malik. Don't talk about Malik. But De'Aaron Fox can get the slander. Why? Because he's the leader? DeMar DeRozan's supposed to be a leader too. So I'm sick and tired of you can't talk about Keegan. You can't talk about DeMar. You can't talk about certain guys, but Kevin Huerter can get it anytime. Kevin Huerter can have 3 good games. He has 1 bad game, ship him out. What is this? I don't need to sit there and caveat every time I talk about DeMar DeRozan and say, hey, but he's a really good player. Because we don't do that with other guys. We don't do that with other guys.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't have come in and said bucket of popcorn on DeRozan at the end, but at the same time, acknowledging that you are right, that this great game DeMar DeRozan had. In fact, he's the focal point of why the Kings had the highest scoring quarter of the season in the second and got back into the game. It then gets overshadowed by 1 for 6 from the field in the fourth quarter. Gets the dunk that obviously ties the game, but misses a midi that would have put him ahead. Fumbles the ball at the end, and
there's no perfect players. No. And I say that bucket of popcorn to everybody.
Sure. It's just
that's if the ball slips out of your hand, I will say you had a bucket of popcorn. That is not a DeMar DeRozan specific thing.
It just sucks that overshadows a great game that DeMar DeRozan had, like a truly great game. That man had elite bucket getting all the way through the game until the fourth quarter, which sucks because
they're clutch players.
But that's the thing is because he has the reputation of being a clutch player, the magnifying glass gets a little stronger when he has a tough stretch down the fourth quarter. And, he talked post game pretty much saying the same thing himself. It's execution stinks, like the looks we got. And I just look at it like any one play could have won or lost the game. Keon missing an open 3, Fox missing the only free throw of the game for the team, DeRozan missing the midi,
Malik missing that wide open 3.
Malik missing the open 3, Domas just putting up the shot instead of feeding it to DeRozan. There's any one thing that could have swung the result, and so I don't try to hone in on the one thing that went wrong. But the whole fourth quarter in totality was tough for DeMar, and that stinks because he played great. He was truly great during that stretch where they were getting back from down 23 points, just bucket after bucket after bucket, and one after and one. Yeah. He was playing excellent.
This is a team loss, okay? But every time I talk about a different player, I don't have to sit there and caveat and say, hey, well, before I say this about De'Aaron Fox, real quick, he did do all this good stuff. So I'm not, before I say that, let me make sure that I'm clear there. I don't do that for anybody. So I'm not going to do that for DeMar DeRozan. We all understand what DeMar DeRozan did. You still lost. You still lost the game. That's it. Let's continue the conversation. What happened last night? Is this the toughest loss of the season? The 916 on the text line wants to talk about whether or not this would have been the same game if the coaches were flipped. That Michael Malone, and people are tired of Michael Malone out here in Sacramento. 916-339-1140 if you want your text to be a part of the conversation. Or you know what? 1 hour down, let's open up the phone lines. You want to talk? You agree with what I'm saying? You hate what I'm saying? Whose fault is it? You want to fire somebody? The time is yours after a heartbreak like that. Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports.